Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of this F1 24 driver career mode with myself driving for Sauber in our rookie season of Formula 1. If you did miss the last episode, it was a very special episode with Fernando Alonso finally claiming his 33rd career victory in Formula 1 around Singapore. It was a very dominant race victory after he absolutely gapped the field on the opening lap. Lando Norris will be also making massive ground, finishing P2 in Singapore after Verstappen failed to score any points. Leclerc also making it onto the podium, and it was a P8 for myself after making a few moves on the opening laps, but it was just surviving the changing conditions at the end of the Grand Prix when the rain finally arrived and we all came in for the intermediate tyres. But moving on to this race weekend, we finally have word on the regulation changes for next season, so we need to look into keeping as many upgrades from the chassis and durability departments for next season. Looking in the durability first, we're going to save the control electronics improved materials and also the energy store improved materials upgrades, as they should be pretty easy to keep. And we're going to also take a look at our specialist, so the power unit consultant, use overtake ERS for 55 seconds, material fabrication planner, tyres to 32% wear, quality assurance tester, no more than 2 penalties in the race weekend, strategy analysis, perfect the race strategy, which should all be pretty good to go. And another weekend with lots of new upgrades on our car as well, including the wheel rim covers, rear floor under tray, a plank upgrade, a fuel tank positioning, and a cockpit weight reduction as well. And for the weather, well, the weather looks like it's going to be for some dry races, but right at the end of qualifying there could be a little bit of rain heading to the circuit, so need to stay aware of that one during our qualifying laps. And as we take a look at the bigger picture here, the gap between the top 5 in the performance has shrunk further, with McLaren continuing to be the fastest car, followed by Mercedes and Aston Martin and Red Bull, then it's Ferrari, and then there's a bit of a gap to us. So Sauber, we've continued to make gains in performance, and now very closely followed by Williams, Haas, RB and Alpine as well. So it is all to play for. There's essentially a top 5 and a bottom 5 in the R&D now, going to the final few races of the season as we go into sprint qualifying.
It's a United States love affair with Formula 1 at the moment, so what a thrill for everyone today to see our drivers lapping COTA at full hot lap speed. It's the Circuit of the Americas and it's qualifying.
And unfortunately, we've had to take an engine penalty for an extra energy store needing to be used for this race weekend. I've kind of run out of them and had to use an extra one, so we'll be starting 10 places below where we intend to start. And you'll see here, on my first flying lap, I have got one Max Verstappen trying to race me on my flying lap. So in the end, I'm just going to back out of it and try to charge up a little bit and see if I can't get myself enough battery to hopefully try and go for a quick lap here. Stroll goes quickest so far here in SQ1, and coming out of the final corner, it's a very short run to the line, and we will cross the line to go P10 from the minute, and we've got just enough time to quickly charge up the battery once more and go for another lap. And coming out of the hairpin, we've had a very big moment. I've had to make multiple attempts at trying to save that, but unfortunately, I just cannot improve on my lap time, and that is going to end the session. Norris fastest in SQ1 by a 10th to George Russell. Alonso P3, he's 4 tenths back. Bottas, he's P30, so he makes it to the next part of sprint qualifying here, but knocked out in SQ1, Ricciardo, myself in P17, so that mistake was very costly. Magnussen, Hulkenberg and Sargent.
So it's all about speed in today's sprint. Not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top? We have 10 turns to the left and 10 turns to the right here at the fantastic Circuit of the Americas. Overtaking opportunities into turn 1 and turn 12 at this anti-clockwise track. It's 3.6 miles long, and we should see average lap speeds of around 126 miles per hour. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position. And it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Norris, Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Sainz, Perez, Stroll, Ocon, Gasly, Albon, Tsunoda, Bottas, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Sargent and Lightning. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out. And alongside me for this afternoon's commentary, Naomi Schiff. Good afternoon, Nones. Well, they say that a change is as good as a rest, and whilst there's not much rest on show in the sprint format today, there's definitely a change to what we're usually seeing on the track. Let's look at their season, and particularly against their teammate. Fair to say, they've got the better of them more often than not. Now, you're the racing driver in this partnership, so tell us about this racing driver. Put us in their shoes. How are they going to be feeling?
It's a very special time for the drivers. It's almost like everything around you slows down and you become hyper aware. So your nerves slightly go up, your adrenaline's going up. It's the perfect time to start focusing on your visualizations and preparing for the race. So you want to avoid distractions and really stay cool, calm, and focused.
I know this isn't where we wanted to start this race, but given we're back here at the back of the grid, it means there's an opportunity to move forward. I've seen you karting back in the day. Let's go and do it again.
Mark getting very sentimental there, saying that we can do it, but I am not very confident. I am struggling with the pace in this car, as it is 5 red lights, and we are away. It was quite a long hold on that 5th red light, and we're off racing. It's a pretty mess start. It wasn't very good. We got a heap of wheel spin. We're going to send it down the inside to make a 4 wide, and then 3 wide once again, and to try and get quite a few positions. They were all just concertining up, and that opened up the door for us to try and make a couple of sneaky overtakes, and that puts us back into P17 after that pretty mediocre start. While the 2 McLarens are battling it out going through the first sector, and it is Fernando Alonso, Sergio Perez, Esteban Ocon currently rounding out the points, and we're going to swing it around the outside of Yuki Tsunoda here, which will give us the inside, and that is a very opportunistic move while they were all slowing up behind each other. And now just a little bit further down the lap, we're going to swing it out from behind of Kevin Magnussen and to send it down the inside, and we run him quite a bit wide actually. I kind of overshot the corner just a tad there. DRS gets enabled. Now we're on to the second lap of the Grand Prix, but we're now on the tail of our teammate Valtteri Bottas, who's currently sitting P14. So we have now caught up to where we essentially should be. I feel like Valtteri is a pretty good gauge on where I need to be. As behind us, Kevin Magnussen, that was a very big engine blowout. So we've had our first victim of the sprint race here in the Circuit of the Americas, as Albon was able to get into the points now. And here's a replay of how he did it using the power of DRS, and a pretty easy move going into the corner. And Ocon didn't really fight it going into the corner either, as Fernando Alonso is now looking to eye up the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, the 2 Spanish drivers going at it here at the Circuit of the Americas. And Fernando will take it down the inside, but Sainz is not done with this. He's going to send it back down the inside here. We saw in the real life Grand Prix a lot of crisscrosses and up and unders and everything was all being done here. Is the AI going to be able to do the same here? Fernando Alonso is going to be able to... I can't even remember who was making the move here. They've been battling for that long. I believe, though, it's going to be Carlos Sainz who maintains P7. Fernando was the attacker in this case, back on board with ourselves. And our teammates made a massive mistake. The pressure just too much for Valtteri, and he makes a mistake, locks up both fronts. Very big lock up on both of them, so hopefully the tyres are not too badly damaged, and that is now us ahead of our teammate into P14, but it's not going to be very long with the power of DRS. Our teammates will once again try and go back in front of us. We're going to try and do a little bit of a crisscross here and see if we can't do anything, but Yuki Tsunoda shows the nose, and it was a risk of us being spun out by him if we continued on with the move there, so we had to back out of it, and unfortunately that's to let Bottas skip away just a tad here, as Piastri makes his way past Max Verstappen using the power DRS, and up through into P4 he goes, and the moves keep going. Fernando Alonso looking to try and get past Carlos Sainz once again. This time, is it going to be a bit of an easier overtaker? Looks like he's got more of the car in front, and this time he does move over the defender from his fellow compatriot, and Fernando is now up into P7, but this battling has allowed Sergio Perez to get through, and there's smoke, and that is the other Red Bull of Max Verstappen, who has fallen out of the podium positions I think he was in. So Max Verstappen now out of the race. One of the drivers in the championship battle is gone. No points to be scored here in the sprint race for him, as his title rival, Lando Norris, currently sits P5, probably rubbing his hands, to be honest, looking at this battle between his teammate and Charles Leclerc, probably thinking that he can scoop up a position here or two if one of these two make a bit of contact and break their front wing after coming to get it fixed. But at the same time, he's probably thinking these two going side by side is going to absolutely ruin the race as they continue to battle it out, but Ocon has now got himself back ahead of Alex Albon, and these guys now both in the points after Max Verstappen dropping out of the race, and fast forwarding all the way to the final lap of the race. Here is George Russell, last lap overtake on his teammate to take the lead of this sprint race here in Kota. And while we're talking about overtakes, here is Lando Norris. He is trying to take advantage of Charles Leclerc after now Oscar Piastri has made the move and more overtakes being made as Stroll gets himself now inside the top 10 here. And that is going to be 2 Aston Martins now inside the top 10. Unfortunately, it's not going to be points for Stroll, as only the top 8 will score. And myself there, you can see, I also have made it past our teammate. So, just a lot of last lap overtakes, a lot of desperation to try and get ourselves a little bit further up. But George Russell will claim victory for the sprint race. Hamilton and Piastri will join him on the podium. And for myself here, considering where I started, a P13 is not too shabby, but the race pace is definitely a struggle. So hopefully we can try and make a couple of setup adjustments before we go into qualifying to try and fix this before, the main qualifying and the main Grand Prix. So, yes, it was a Mercedes 1-2 in the end. Piastri also up on the podium. The rest of the top 8 followed as Leclerc, Norris and P5 claiming more points towards Verstappen. After that, DNF, Sainz, Alonso and Perez. Myself, P13, and our teammate P14 after that last lap overtake on him. Unfortunately, during this sprint, we did lose a couple of drivers, Verstappen and Magnussen, non-finishers here in the sprint as we get ready for Grand Prix qualifying.
It's a United States love affair with Formula One at the moment, so what a thrill for everyone today to see our drivers lapping Kota at full hot lap speed. It's the Circuit of the Americas, and it's qualifying.
So we have made a couple of setup changes before this Grand Prix qualifying to try and see if we can't improve the race pace a little bit. I know my qualifying's not quite there, and we're just going to have to try and make do as we cross the line for our first flying lap to go P10. So roughly about where we were last time in qualifying. And as we go into the hairpin, that's caused us so much trouble. We get another snap of oversteer coming out of this hairpin, and that is going to lose us all of that time. And in the end, we don't improve on our final flying lap. So Hamilton is fastest in Q1 by 0.02 of a second to Lando Norris. Verstappen sits P3, 500s back and knocked out in qualifying 1. Magnussen, Bottas, Hulkenberg and myself in P19 and Sargent as well. So we have struggled massively.
Well, you don't need me to remind you that Formula One is now so beloved in the United States that we race here 3 times a year. But let's give respect to Kota, or the Circuit of the Americas, to give it its full name. This place laid the foundations for this moment and still remains the host of the US Grand Prix. It's the Circuit of the Americas then, situated 14 miles outside of the great city of Austin. This is a 3.6-mile lap with 20 corners, 10 to the left and 10 to the right, and top speeds of around 200 miles per hour. Overtaking opportunities are available into turns 1 and 12, especially with that rear wing DRS wide open. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position. And starting next to them is George Russell. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Norris, Oscar Piastri, Fernando Alonso, Sainz, Gasly, Ocon, Stroll, Albon, Ricciardo, Leclerc, Bottas, Lightning, Perez, Sargent, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Verstappen, and Kevin Magnussen fills the last spot on the grid. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
You've got some work to do to match your result from last race. Come on, we know you can do it.
So by the sounds of it, a top 10 is what Mark wants here for this Grand Prix matching where we finished in Singapore. We're messing around with the setup a little bit, but in the end, we'll just stick with lap 12, a medium to the hard. There is not much else better out there at the moment as we wait for the lights to go out. There's 5 red lights, and we are away for another very long hold of the lights. Whatever they're doing here, they're holding them for quite a while, but we are eventually underway, and it's a much better start for myself this time. We don't lose any positions, but at the same time, we're not gaining, but we're going to try and get a bit of an exit here on the rest of them, and so we do manage managed to gain one position out of this so far around the outside of the Ferrari, and Ricciardo is also very slow coming into the S section, so we're going to sneak up around the outside of him and get the move done into P11. Gasly, Stroll, Albon and Ocon currently rounding out the points here, and we'll try and do a similar move to what we did last time, but just this time the grip of that Alpine is much superior than what the RB was, and I'm guessing they just weren't going as slow as well, so we weren't able to make the overtake work this time round. And fast forwarding to lap 4 here, Lando Norris, he's looking to try and get the lead away from the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. He's going to go around the outside at the end of the DRS straight, which will give him the inside for this section here. But Hamilton's doing really well here to actually manage to stay side by side. And once again, the battling through here is going to stay side by side, as we've seen so far during the sprint and now into the main Grand Prix. But Lando will prevail and he will take the lead of the Grand Prix. And while all of that was happening, we were overtaken by Daniel Ricciardo. So with the DRS, he's got that position back from us, and so it's just a little replay there to show how he managed to do that. Very simple overtake for himself. On board with ourselves here, we're now trying to defend from Charles Leclerc. Daniel Ricciardo is just skipping away a little bit into the distance, and Leclerc's going to get the better of us here and make the move at turn 1, and we're just going to have to sit tight behind him now. But Mark, he's going to have different plans for us as we butcher that line through there, actually. Mark wants us to try and catch Ocon. Where is Ocon, though? He is not even in the top left corner. You see that little dot there in front of Ricciardo? Yeah, that light blue dot. That is Esteban Ocon. That's where he is, and that's who Mark wants us to try and catch. 3.5 seconds the gap is currently to Esteban Ocon, as we make a little bit of a mistake there, and that's going to allow Bottas to come through on us. So we're going to now go side by side with our teammate, try and run him a little bit of our road. I'm not very happy with the way that he raced us in the sprint qualifying, as I was trying to see if I couldn't have any goes to try and get through the field. And once again, with the power DRS, he's going to just swing it straight through, and I'm trying to make sure that I don't let the likes of Sergio Perez or Yuki Tsunoda take advantage as well, because we're kind of bottling up the field here at the moment. And now coming to the end of lap 9, starting lap 10, unfortunately I say, but as expected, I wasn't able to catch Ocon in the end. He just drove away in that other battle pack now, which is like 5 odd seconds up the road. But with the DRS now, we're going to try and go around the outside of our teammate. Are we going to be able to make the move work? We haven't got quite the grip that we thought that we had, so we're going to have to send it down the inside. A little bit of an ambitious move there, as I reckon Bottas was thinking he had it all covered off. But we will get ourselves back ahead of our teammates. Now we do a bit of an order check here to see how things have shaped up after the first opening 10 laps. It is Lando Norris leading the way ahead of the two Mercedes, Hamilton and Russell rounding out the podium. Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri, Pierre Gasly, Carlos Sainz, Stroll in P8. Then it's Alex Albon and Esteban Ocon rounding out the points. Charles Leclerc, Daniel Ricciardo, then myself leading our teammate in P13 and P14. Then Sergio Perez, Yuki Tsunoda, the other Red Bull, and Max Verstappen. So the Red Bulls really struggling so far this race weekend. Hulkenberg, Sargent and Magnussen, the last car on the road, on board with ourselves here. So we now need to let our teammate back through. I understand, it's a DRS train. I've got enough straight line speed that I don't have to, let him through. I don't think I'm really holding him up that much. It just happens to be in a DRS train, and he just happens to be behind me. So I'm a little annoyed. I will do the right thing, and I'll eventually let him through as we take a look here. And it is a battle between the Ferrari and Alpine, a battle that you wouldn't really expect to see in this day and age of Formula 1, with the Alpine continuously struggling in this series. I'll say that as they're both currently in the points versus the one Ferrari in the point. But it looks like Carlos Sainz is going to get the better of here, and he will make it up into P6, and you'll see there on the timing, I am currently letting our teammate through, and I brake early, and I don't know what was going on. I broke early, but it still wasn't enough to let him through. And now I've run wide in the dirty air, and this is going to allow Sergio Perez to try and get around us, but I'm not going to have any of it. I want to try and stay within the DRS of our teammate, but not let Sergio through. So we're going to squeeze him out, but in the end there as well, we're boxing this lap too. And so hopefully we can get a bit of an undercut going here, and try and gap these two around us, as Bottas doesn't come in as expected since we're coming in, but also Perez isn't coming in at this rate. I'm the only one in the pit lane to come in for a pit stop this early, which is a bit surprising, because I would have thought, being on just a default strategy that I haven't changed, that some of more of the AI would have been following me in as well. So we are the only people coming in for our pit stop so far. It looks like it should be a pretty breezy pit stop. 2.4 seconds, pretty good stop in the end. We're going to come out and plumb last, but hopefully a couple of quick laps here on a fresh set of hard tyres should get us a little bit of an advantage, as only the next lap Lando Norris, the race leader, is now in, and he's going to be followed by Hamilton and Alonso as well. So 3 of the top 4 drivers in the end have come into the lane here. George Russell, obviously not wanting to double stack, he'll continue out, and it is the leaders going on to that hard set of tyres. On board with ourselves here as we come down the main straight here. There goes our teammate. He's behind us now by quite some margin, and we've caught a little bit up to Alex Albon. It's 2.7 seconds ahead. But the main thing is, we have gapped our teammate quite significantly in this process, and we're going to get ahead of Sergio Perez as well. Perez, though, he is also going to come out ahead of our teammate, and we're going to pinch off Max Verstappen at the apex of turn 1 here to make sure he doesn't get ahead of ourselves, because I'm very strong in this first sector, and I want to try and break DRS by going through this first sector as good as possible. I can't do that if I'm stuck behind someone, as George Russell now makes the move on Fernando Alonso. So Russell must have lost out to Alonso in the pit stop sequence. And we're taking a look here at Lando Norris as he continues to lead the Grand Prix. And Hamilton's just gone through. What's going on? Lando Norris is coming to a slow, and there is smoke coming out. In the sprint race, it was Max Verstappen with an engine failure, and now it is Lando Norris in the main Grand Prix with an engine failure. The 2 title fighters both having DNFs at some point this season, but Max Verstappen, he can't capitalize on this because he's outside of the points. He's still P13 at the moment. I say that as he does actually get the move done to get himself up in the P12, but it doesn't change the fact that he is not in the points at the moment. And we're letting Sergio Perez go through now. He's just too quick on these fresh set of tyres with the power DRS. As yellow flag ahead, Perez is locked up, safety car's out, and there is an absolute traffic jam at the end of the straight, and we've now got an illegal overtake on Sergio Perez. I thought he was coming to a stop to try and not make any contact, but in the end, it was an illegal overtake they deemed. It's Charles Leclerc, he spun, so a pretty sloppy mistake there, and he ended up blocking the racing line. So unfortunately, a couple of cars there getting stuck with nowhere really to go, and that was enough for the FIA to bring out the safety car. So we're going to do an auto check here under the safety car. Lewis Hamilton leads the way ahead of his teammates. Mercedes 1-2. Fernando Alonso sits 3rd on the podium. Then it's Oscar Piastri, Carlos Sainz, Stroll in P6. Gasly, Ricciardo, Verstappen now finds himself up into the points. Esteban Ocon rounds out the points. Albon in 11th, and then Sergio Perez, myself in P13. Yuki Tsunoda, our teammate, Valtteri in 15th. Then it's the 2 Hasses of Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Sargent, and Leclerc last on the road, with Lando Norris the only non-finisher so far, as we're getting ready to go green. Once again, the field is coming to a stop, essentially, at the final corner, which really caught me off guard, to the point where I've now absolutely butchered this restart, and I could be under attack here by Yuki if I'm not careful. Luckily, nothing comes about it, but we are now trying to get past Sergio Perez here, as we do that signature move that we've created around the outside to give us the inside. A big slap of oversteer on the exit there, which is a bit unusual to get a bit of oversteer there, but we're going to try and finish off the move into this corner here, and we should be able to get the slipstream on Alex Albon. But as we're trying to set up a move here on Alex Albon, we're getting strange data from the team, and so hopefully this doesn't mean that there's going to be some sort of engine issue. We do have a worn component, but it should just be a slight drop in power. We send it down the inside, ignoring the warning that we're getting from Mark at the moment, and that is now us up into P11. Could we possibly be trying to get a point here? A point would be absolutely magnificent, but we would have to catch a deficit of 2.5 seconds to Esteban Ocon, and it looks like there is battling up ahead, and now there's a slow Alpine. It's Pierre Gasly, and just like that, we are now into the points. Our prayers have been answered, and it is Pierre Gasly who has got a puncture. Very unfortunate, especially just after the safety car restart. So he'll have to come in and drop him all the way to the back. And now we're being asked to burn some extra fuel. So this is one of those objectives I've genuinely always struggled with, because I just don't understand how to burn extra fuel. It's not like I can turn up the fuel mixture any further than standard during the Grand Prix. And now Max Verstappen knows that Lando Norris is out of the Grand Prix. He has been absolutely rapid, making up massive amount of ground, and he's going around the outside now of Daniel Ricciardo. The two mates are battling it out here in Coda, and Max Verstappen will claim P7, so more crucial points to try and get back to Lando Norris that Norris claimed on him in the sprint race. And on board with ourselves now, we're trying to defend from Sergio Perez, but I'll lock up and I'll run wide, and that is going to just allow Sergio Perez through, and we have just thrown away 10th position. We've thrown away that point, and that was just such a clumsy mistake to make. And with only 5 laps to go, it is not like there's a massive amount of time for us to try and get that position back as well. As Stroll is looking like he's trying to get himself ahead of Carlos Sainz here. So Sainz it's been a bit confusing trying to judge Carlos Sainz's pace. He's been looking really good, battling it out with the McLarens and stuff in the sprint race. Then when it came to the main Grand Prix, he's been struggling. He's now being overtaken by Stroll in the Aston Martin. I know the Aston Martin's currently like second, third fastest car, but he's just been falling down the order since that safety car restart. We do get ourselves ahead of Sergio Perez. Well, at least I think he sends it back down the inside of us, and he's going to get that position back. So what I thought was going to be the points back into our pocket turns into trying to have to go and do that once again. And you'll see here, we're just within DRS range. Perez has absolutely dropped us, but we're going to make the same mistake once again. Slight lockup runs us wide, and now Yuki Tsunoda is going to be able to get through, and that drops us to P12. Surely the points aren't on the card anymore. I mean, I've just thrown away any shot that I had to try and score this team a singular point here, as Sainz is once again battling Stroll here in the Aston, and he's going to send it down the inside. Is that going to be the move done? He moves over to defend the position, and that is going to be him back up into P5, so a top 5 on the cards for Ferrari. And we do manage to burn all that extra fuel, so something that I generally struggle with, I have managed to finally complete. Lap 27 of 28, only a lap and a half to go. Esteban Ocon is wanting to make this move done sooner rather than later on Daniel Ricciardo, and he's going to send it around the outside. He has had the aid of DRS to try and get him this close to Daniel Ricciardo. He's going to send it now up the inside. Is he going to be able to get the traction down to try and block off Daniel Ricciardo? He does. And that is Ocon now up into P8. Ricciardo drops to P9. Both still in the points. Final lap of the Grand Prix now. George Russell with DRS. Could he make 2 last lap overtakes in a single race weekend? He did it in the sprint race. He's done it in the main Grand Prix. That is George Russell up into the lead of the race. Stroll has also managed to get himself now ahead of Carlos Sainz. Max Verstappen's got up to this battle pack as well. So could he maybe capitalize and gain even more points on Lando Norris? Yuki Tsunoda gets himself past Sergio Perez to claim the final point. So Perez has now dropped out of the points. Double points for RB as it stands now if they finish it this way. But all eyes now turn to George Russell. Russell has driven a brilliant race. He has sat behind his teammate for most of the Grand Prix and pounced when it mattered most. George Russell claims victory here in Kota ahead of Lewis Hamilton, claiming a Mercedes 1-2 on board with ourselves now. We just have to navigate our way through these final few corners, and we're going to drop it. We've spun it up in wheel spin, and we've dropped it, and we're now going to see the majority of the field go through now, and that has dropped us all the way down to P18. The only driver behind us, Pierre Gasly, who is 30 seconds back after having a puncture after the safety car restart. We're going to cross the line in P18. Oh, that is so annoying. So just another look at it here. I reckon it was just a lapse of concentration. It was the final lap of the race. I wasn't in the points. I was in no man's land. I did have Hulkenberg coming up behind me, but it was still over a second. He's done well there to avoid me, but just a lapse in concentration. I didn't realise that's how close my flick spin got.
Here's our winner. By George, he's done it. Russell wins. And I can see the drivers starting to approach the podium for the victory celebrations. A real team victory today. Everybody played their part. Congratulations then to Mercedes, your race winners.
So, just a reminder that I am still a rookie here in the world of Formula One. That was just such a silly mistake. But we can't let our mistake ruin the moment for George Russell claiming the victory here in America. Mercedes 1-2 on US soil, and Alonso makes it back-to-back podiums. And yeah, I just can't believe I did that. But we'll take a look at the rest of the top 10. Oscar Piastri, Stroll, Carlos Sainz, Verstappen gains more points back on Lando Norris. Esteban Ocon, Daniel Ricciardo, Yuki Tsunoda claims the final point. Our teammate Bottas is P13 in the end. Myself P18 after that spin. And Norris was the only non-finisher of the Grand Prix. As we take a look at the championship standings now. So Max Verstappen actually extends his lead to 12 points now over Lando Norris. Piastri continues to close the gap in P3. Myself now P8 after no points are scored this race weekend. Bottas is in P18. He's still only 1 point behind Kevin Magnussen. And McLaren, they're leading the constructors by 91 points to Red Bull Racing at the moment. And then it's Ferrari in P3, 168 points back. And Sauber, we're now P6, 18 points behind Aston Martin. And our driver ratings now, our experience, racecraft, awareness, and pace, they've all gone up. But we've lost a bit of focus there with that mistake that we made. And our overall is now level 85. We've got a 48% recognition to our teammate. and we have lost some points to our quality assurance tester. So I don't know what I've done, but obviously I've done something to cause a loss of points, but the rest of them have gained plenty of points, so it's not too much of a loss. And that is going to be all for this episode. If you did enjoy it, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode where we go to Mexico City for the Mexican Grand Prix.